Hello, everybody. All right, today is Thursday, December the 5th, 2025. So, welcome to the Mikestand. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in here before we get started. Um, if you haven't already, of course, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions the best of my ability. So let me just do this here. Go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go. Go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go. Gigantor, Gigantor. Alright, so that all being said, let's see. 1:48. Like I said, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions in one. It's 2 minutes now. I guess we're a little early, so I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and talk about what's on top for tonight. So I do have 3 articles that plan on going over tonight, all from Bleeding Fool. Okay, so among those articles we're going to go over tonight, of course, all 3 of them are comic related from Bleeding Fool, including school libraries removing explicit sexual orientation focused manga, albeit they said procured, but I believe they meant focused. CGC rejects but charges customer for politically offensive Trump comic. Now, CGC is the, I guess, comic grading company, and they chose not to grade a Trump comic yet. They still charge the customer for doing the job. So, and then an opinion piece on why Mark Wade should not retire over politics. So those are, so that's what, how we're going to wade through or orienting grades, as it were. Ha 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 ha. Little pun work there going on. Anyways, yeah, it's almost 4 minutes now. I usually wait till 5 minutes to get going, but you know something? And of course, we also will have, of course, the wrestling wrap up, talk about what happened, get caught up on the latest news in WWE as they prepare for, WWE, as they prepare for next Saturday night's main event, as well as talk about what happened on last night's Dynamite, as well as look ahead to tonight's Impact. So with that coming up, we're now at a little about 4.5 minutes. So why don't we go ahead and get started then here? Let me just go ahead and pull up the articles here. All right, so our first article here is actually from our old friend Avi Green. School libraries removing explicit sexual orientation for cured manga. Now, I believe they meant to type in focused, but somebody had a typo there. So, anyways, let's and as I said, if you haven't already, if you guys can like and share this, see if we can get some more friendly people here to engage. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's get going here. School libraries removing explicit sexual orientation focused manga. Article by Avi Green published today. One called Unico Awakening. So, this is Avi speaking. Anime News Network has a whole report about manga books with content potentially unsuitable for children being removed from school libraries. And now getting into the article he's referencing here. In the past 2 months, 2 school districts in Tennessee have listed the books, including manga series, that they have removed from school libraries. Other school districts in Tennessee are considering how to comply with a new state law this year to limit books in school libraries. The Rutherford County Schools removed over 150 titles from school libraries on November 11th after board member Francis Rosales flagged them a day earlier. The first 8 volumes of Yusei Matsui's Assassination Classroom manga and Volume 1 of Atsushi Okubo's Fire Force are among the titles under review. Another board member, Caleb Tidwell, said that the titles were sexually explicit under school board policy and state obscenity laws. Fire Force, okay. I'm not even sure. Let's see. The Assassination Classroom, again, neither one of those, they're citing sexually explicit. Okay, they're gonna have to give an example. Now, Grant, I haven't read the mangas, and of course, I have seen the Assassination Classroom anime, and I would say there's nothing really sexually explicit about it. Nothing sexual about it. Period. You know, but let's see. During a September board meeting, one of Tidwell's supporters for banning the books said that they contained quote unquote pornographic material. I wonder what he's citing as pornographic material, because again, anybody who knows the stories of both Assassination Classroom and Fire Force, I don't think there's anything outright sexual about it. There might be some risque stuff. There might be, maybe you have some things that are cut maybe a little too low, what have you, but nothing outright sexual about it. But then again, there's also another aspect of, depending upon which schools they're talking about. They're talking about elementary schools, and yeah, maybe those books are not appropriate for, not necessarily because of anything sexual, but more because of the blood and gore. But anyways, getting back to the article here, Rosales told Chalkbeat, a news organization dedicated to education in America, she used Wilson County's list of removed books as well as the Booklooks website to compile the list of books to remove in Rutherford County schools. In parentheses, school districts in other states remove books such as Assassination Classroom partly on the basis of reviews on Booklooks that last year. On parentheses. The Tennessee State Legislature made changes to the Age Appropriate Materials Act of 2022 on July 1st to expand the definition of obscenity. Any material, quote, containing nudity or describes or depicts sexual excitement, sexual conduct, excess violence, or sadomasochistic abuse, unquote, are now prohibited with the amended act. Material which appeals to the, quote, prurient interest, unquote, should also be under consideration for age appropriateness. All right. Well, if the whole idea is to have kids reading age appropriate books, that's not necessarily censorship, and that shouldn't be a problem. I've even talked about before. There are certain things that you should not have, like certain age groups reading at certain times in their lives. It's unnecessary. But the only parts in here that I could possibly see them having an issue with, and it's not even per se anything sexual either. It's the excess violence and the sadomasochistic abuse. Okay, well, okay, just the excess violence part, but because the thing about Assassination Classroom, the whole point is that you got basically the I guess lowest level class being trained to ultimately kill their teacher. And they're very, and the that very teacher wants to teach the kids and all that. The Brevard Public Schools Board in Florida banned the first volume of Sho Haru Sono's Sasaki and Miyano Boys Love manga in the district school libraries during a board meeting on August 27th earlier this year. A person in the district challenged the book's inclusion in the school's library on the grounds that, quote, sexual orientation should not be encouraged, suggested, or implanted in the youth. The complaint also included concerns children would be, quote, exposed to age inappropriate, obscene, explicit content, and that there was, quote, no value in making homosexual books available at school, unquote. The book is rated for teen. I could see that. I could see, yes. Kids at the elementary school level don't really need like any in-depth knowledge of homosexuality. And you could maybe even argue that middle school students don't necessarily need an in-depth knowledge of homosexuality. Now, I would say that, I would say that maybe 16, 17-year-olds can be exposed to it without having undue influence. But I could also see, okay, well, if they don't, maybe the 16, 17-year-olds, if they do read those particular books, they could be exposed to them more, because a lot of these schools have like some courses for like the junior and senior 16, 17, 18-year-olds who would actually have, college credit courses at the high school level. And in that case, they're, right. Okay, so there's Avi's response to what we just read. One must wonder if they believe banning such material from schools constitutes a literal ban and or censorship. Because if you can buy this stuff at bookstores and online stores, then it's not like it's really being banned or censored. Do they realize this material, no matter the artistic quality, is unsuitable for children? Once there, once there may have been a time they did, but now that's tragically no longer the case for some of these ideologues, and it's led to so much moral damage. And who knows how many students have been influenced for the worse by manga books like Assassination Classroom, the things it's built on. Again, though, at least from what I've watched, and I've watched the Assassination Classroom anime, and again, I don't really find anything like that sexually explicit in the in on that, in the anime. And I would imagine, since the anime is usually taken from the manga, I would imagine that the whole theme of it is the idea that the kids are being trained to assassinate their teacher, who basically has the power to blow up the world if he wants to. What all the teacher wants to do is, be able to teach the kids. It's actually, when you look at it, it's actually kind of an interesting story, kind of a play off story of good and evil in a way, and people's perceptions of it. Let's see. And then here's Avi's last statement on, it's good there's schools taking the steps needed to get explicit manga like this out of their libraries. Um, but are they doing the same when it comes to USA graphic novels like Genderqueer? Well, I guess it's safe to say that in the state like Tennessee, they are. But in states like Illinois, Oregon, and Minnesota, it could be a lot harder to get the stuff out of the school systems. Though with Donald Trump now reelected as POTUS, or President of the United States, there could be good news to come on this issue. And they'll be getting propaganda published in the USA out of the schools too. Yeah. So on this thing, yes, I understand what Tennessee's trying to do. They're basically trying to keep the reading material for the kids age appropriate, particularly the younger kids, and that's a good thing. I've always believed that outside of understanding their body parts and what their main use for, in terms of like going to the bathroom, kids don't really need to know an extensive amount of information when it comes to sexual issues. Okay, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina is enough for most kids to know, when they're young. All right. That's just my take on the article. Anyways, let's get ready to move on to the next story here. Next comic story here. And this is the CGC one, the Comics Grading Council, I guess. CGC rejects but charges customer for quote unquote politically offensive Trump comic. Article by Chris Braley, published back on December the 5th, which is today. I don't know why I said. All right, so let's. All right. So, and as I said, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing this thing. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So now, with all that being said, let's move on to this next article here. The comic book grading service, CGC, has come under fire for allegedly refusing to grade a book due to its political content, raising concerns about the company's grading criteria and potential bias. The incident has sparked debates about the grading system and its impact on the collector's market, as well as the role of personal beliefs in professional assessments. CGC, known for slabbing collectible comic books, and providing a grading system for collectors to assess the value of a book accurately, faced criticism earlier this year when it was discovered that a rare variant of an Amazing Spider-Man issue had been swapped in the encasement shell without being detected, swapping out the valuable book for a less valuable copy and upending the collector's market. According to YouTuber, quote unquote Sticky Goose, and reporting at Fandom Pulse, a comic book fan submitted that comic COVID, a global pandemic saga unfolds, #1, featuring an image of President Donald Trump and an homage to a 50 Cent album cover, and CGC refused to grade the book because of, quote, political offense, unquote, according to a response on a sticker that says, quote, do not encapsulate, unquote. The customer was charged for the service, but not refunded after the book was rejected for the reason of, quote unquote, political offense. Okay, well, that's kind of screwy. They pay you to grade a book, and then you say that you don't want to, then you should give back the money. Okay, if you're not going to do the job, you should give back the money, or not, or not, or not take the money in the first place. Hey, Rick, thanks for popping in. We got comics galore tonight, as it were. The rejection highlights a need for clearer protocols to inform customers about the status of their submissions, avoiding misunderstandings. The incident also raises questions about CGC's political bias, as other comics with similar themes have been graded without issue. The customer told Sticky Goose via DM, quote, I gave it to an actual CGC representative at Spokala. The book has been graded before, but with other covers. So it can't be the interior. I had called them to make sure that they had the right date for the book, and they took the information. They never communicated at the show, on the phone, or email that it was rejected, unquote. And then I guess Sticky Goose, who's a YouTuber, They have a link to his response. This is the album cover the comic was doing an homage to. This is the 50 Cent. Get rich or die trying. The confusion surrounding homage covers indicates that CGC's graders may not fully understand the context of certain book art, certain comic book art, leading to arbitrary judgments. Examples of other politically charged comics being graded suggest that lack of uniformity in CGC's evaluation process, which could undermine trust in their grading system. Here's another comic that CGC did not reject, which shows the titular character assaulting then President George W. Bush on the cover. Somehow it was not rejected for quote-unquote political offense. A savage dragon there. As Fandom Pulse via Sticky Goose points out, other President Trump covers have been graded, but the ones he saw present President Trump in disparaging manner, whereas the one which was rejected showed Trump to be triumphant. Unquote. Number one. Customers expect CGC to provide a grading service without moral judgments, emphasizing the need for the company to stick to grading rather than acting as a content arbiter. This incident may prompt industry-wide discussions regarding grading standards and the role of personal beliefs and professional assessment, potentially leading to revised guidelines. Mm-hmm. All right, so there we go with that one. I said if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Now, let's see, we're at the 28-minute mark, so we might be doing very well on time here. All right, let's get down to this last article here. See where we're at after this one. Okay. Why DC Comics writer Mark Waid should not retire over politics. Article by Chris Braley, published today. All right, so DC Comics writer Mark Waid's recent decision to possibly retire from comics due to Donald Trump's re-election is a sad reflection of our current political climate. As someone who supports President Trump and is not a fan of Wade's history of toxic behavior, I still can't help but feel disappointed by Wade's choice to let his personal political views interfere with his career in the comic book industry. Sadly, this has been a common refrain, not only from Wade, but several in the comic book industry at writ large. Okay. I don't know if that was a typo or what, but yeah, when you take attitudes like, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. That usually is not going to be a winning formula for you. Comics have always been a medium that celebrates diversity, creativity, and the power of the human spirit. By the way, there's Chris Braley writing this article, and who wrote the last one we just read as well. So, by allowing political differences to dictate his future in the industry, Wade is essentially giving in to the very divisiveness that his work has often sought to combat. Furthermore, it's unclear how Wade's retirement will positively impact the industry or the readers who have enjoyed his stories. Many fans of his work may feel disappointed by his decision, as it seems to prioritize his personal political opinions over his dedication to creating engaging and thought provoking stories. In my opinion, Mark Waid has come to represent some of the most toxic examples of narcissistic creators in comics. If the landslide election of President Trump broke him, then he isn't made of very stern stuff. I think it's ridiculous to suggest he can't make great comics in the wake of an election. Chris making some good points there. Some of the best art in the history of man was made during political strife, be it books like quote unquote 1984 by George Orwell or quote unquote To Kill a Mockingbird, which was a blistering commentary of the Jim Crow era. There are movies like quote unquote Doctor Strangelove, quote unquote Apocalypse Now, or Spike Lee's quote unquote Do the Right Thing, unquote. And what about songs like Imagine, quote unquote, by John Lennon, Born in the USA, quote unquote, by Bruce Springsteen, or Vietnam War songs like, quote unquote, Fortunate Son by CCR. For those of you who don't know who CCR is, that's Creedence Clearwater Revival. And, quote unquote, Give Peace a Chance, also by John Lennon. Has Mark Waid heard of any of these? And there are just a tiny sample of great art being made in response to societal political challenges. Okay. And yes, even comic books have explored political upheaval and cultural changes, from Watchmen, quote unquote, to Moss, quote unquote, quote, V for Vendetta, unquote, and quote unquote, the Sandman series from Neil Gaiman. I know there aren't really those aren't really superhero books, but surely Wade has heard of Identity Crisis, quote unquote, quote Spider-Man Reign, unquote, quote Superman Red Sun, unquote, quote World War Hulk, unquote, and even quote The Dark Knight Returns, unquote, which could all be examples of how comic book creators have definitely used mainstream superheroes to address political strife or social issues. Each of these, in parentheses, and many others, offered unique perspectives and insights into the complex nature of power, responsibility, and justice. Maybe Wade simply doesn't understand this. Unfortunately, Mark Wade is just doing what he does best on social media, throwing a temper tantrum when he doesn't get his way. It's unseemly and has permanently tainted my opinion of him as well. While I think Wade is a talented writer, I wish he were more like Banksy, who does great art, and it's universally clear what the message, even as no one knows anything more about the creator. People publicly crying over how politics broke them only makes them considerably worse. Full disclosure, I would have been very distressed if Kamala Harris had somehow managed to get elected last month. So I understand Mark Wade's frustration with the current political climate. But I also believe that retiring from comics due to his political views is a weak, short-sighted, and counterproductive decision. By stepping away from the industry, Wade is depriving himself and his fans of the opportunity to continue creating stories and inspire, entertain, and challenge readers, and that's a terrible outcome for the industry. Oh, there we go with that. Alrighty then. So let's see, we're at 36 minute mark now. So I guess I should talk a little bit about. I guess I can move on to. Actually, let me see if I can find one more story somewhere. Another quickie. New lines to end. Alright, so let me see. Just trying to find it. See if there's maybe even at least one more article, like maybe another quickie to kind of Oh wow, there's a couple of articles here in regards to Casey Kasem. I think I'll do those. I think I'll try to do both of those. I don't expect them to. Those look like a couple of very interesting articles to go over. All right, so we're gonna take a so first up, meet the man behind Shaggy, Robin, and more classic cartoon characters. Zoinks! Holy voice actors, Batman. Article published on December 3rd by MeTV Toon staff. So I'm going to be looking back at of course, the career of the late great voice actor, radio personality, Casey Kasem here. So let's take a look at this. Many know Casey Kasem for his work as a radio DJ on America's Top 40, but we here at MeTV Toons know him for his incredible animation career. Kasem was not only the man behind Shaggy and Robin, he appeared in dozens of cartoons and entertained viewers of all ages. Let's jump into a few of our favorite cartoon characters voiced by Casey Kasem. Alexander Cabot the Third. This guy, of course, from Josie and the Pussycats. The The groovy band manager of Josie and the Pussycats, Kasem brought a level of goofiness to Alexander that balanced well off of Melody and Valerie. Alexander, as a character, is very similar to Shaggy, which made for a hilarious crossover episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies, where Kasem voiced both Alexander and Shaggy. Now, I get that, especially when you're in an ensemble cast, right, where you at times get to talk to yourself as two different characters. That I would think would be quite fun to do. Yeah. So, we continue on with the Winfred Wheatley. The one I'm not as much. So Kasem also lent his voice to the Funky Phantom, where he played Winfield Wheatley, a famous race car driver competing in the desert race with the Roadhog Roadster. So yeah, that was from Speed Buggy, the Funky Phantom, which of course MTV did actually do a Funky Phantom marathon back in October as part of their Halloween specials. Professor Lundgren, here's another one from Funky. Another character Kasem voiced on the Funky Phantom is Professor Lundgren, an archaeologist who may have accidentally released the ghost of Montezuma while looking for artifacts. Robin and Dick Grayson, of course, probably Casey's second most famous voice he's done after Shaggy. Holy voices, Batman! One of Kasem's most prolific roles was Robin. He played Robin in 76 episodes of Super Friends, 17 episodes of The Adventures of Batman, and in the Scooby-Doo special, Scooby-Doo Meets Batman. Yeah, and I think he also voiced Robin. I think he might have voiced Robin as well in the when Batman, the 2 episodes of Scooby-Doo, of the all new Scooby-Doo movies, where they featured Batman and Robin. So I believe that too. Professor Goodfellow. Kasem also provided guest character voices on Super Friends. One such voice was Professor Goodfellow, the well-meaning but stubborn scientist who introduced a form of artificial intelligence, the Geek, Geec, that stands for Goodfellow's effort alleviating computer, I believe, or something like that, to the Super Friends world. Monty Marble. This sounds like a Flintstones character, possibly. Another guest role Kasem would often play on cartoons would be as a game show host like Monty Marble in The Flintstones Meet Rockula, and The Flintstones and the Frankenstones, and Bill Barker in Two Stupid Dogs. Himself. Outside of his voice acting career, Kasem was a public figure in his own right. As the radio host of America's Top 40, he was often asked to appear in movies and television shows as himself or as his voice playing over the radio. He played himself in Undercover Angel in 1999, Sister Sister in 1996, Mr. Wrong in 1996, Sybil 1995, The Martin Short Show 1994, Ben Stiller Show 92 and 93, Saved by the Bell 1989 and 1991. Yeah, and I do remember. I think those guest appearances on Saved by the Bell, he was more like acting more like kind of a host kind of character, where it's like this is your life kind of character, or let's look back at what happened. Let's look like 20 years into the future and see where they all end up, or something like that. Amen in 1991, Alf in 1990, My Two Dads in 1989, The People Next Door 1989, and Ghostbusters in 1984. Honorable mentions. Before getting to the big character that defined Case's career, I guess they're talking about Shaggy. Let's explore some honorable mentions. He played multiple characters on 1984's The Transformers, and I do know that, including Blue Streak, Cliff Jumper, Teletran 1, and Dr. Arkaville. Also appeared in 39 episodes of Sesame Street, starting in Season 1. Season 1, as I recall, was back in 1969. So, appearing mostly in cartoon shorts as, quote, in smaller quotes, guy with the letter Q, unsmaller quote, smaller quote, guy with the letter B, unsmaller quote, etc. Following his professional DJ career, he also played fictional DJs in Blue's Clues, Rugrats in Paris, and Timo Supremo. Kasem also provided additional voices to Richie Rich, The Gary Coleman Show, Plastic Man, Emergency Plus 4, and What's New, Mr. Magoo. So basically, he provided voices for a lot of 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s cartoons, you could hear them both on the radio, and when you got up on Saturday morning, you could probably hear them, 2 or 3 times in a morning as well. Shaggy Rogers. Zoink! Shaggy was Casey's most played role. He played Shaggy in 16 movies, 15 television series, over 200 episodes, and numerous commercials and videos. While Kasem initially auditioned for Fred, he appreciated that he was allowed to make Shaggy his own. He came up with the phrase, "Scoob, old buddy, old pal, old friend of mine," and used his 2 radio jockey colleagues, Dave Hull and Richard Crenna, as inspiration for Shaggy's voice and demeanor. Kasem noted many times that he had never said the word zoinks before Scooby-Doo, and did not use it in everyday conversation, no matter how much people asked him to. All right. So there's that one. And we're going to also and there's one other story here that I thought was interesting too, that we'll kind of take a look at. Going back to the previous thing there. And this is also kind of in connection to the other story, obviously, and I guess even to the last paragraph of that last story. Why Casey Kasem quit playing Shaggy? Can't always have it your way. Article done on December 4th, which is yesterday, 10 a.m., by MeTV Toon staff. So, after 28 years of playing Shaggy, Casey Kasem walked out. Casey Kasem, nationally beloved radio host and voice actor, played Shaggy since the first episode of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? By 1997, Kasem had not only recorded hundreds of episodes, but had played a pivotal role in the development of Shaggy as a character. He developed Shaggy's voice and mannerisms, quipped phrases that Shaggy would repeat throughout the years, and had grown to love the character that he had played since 1969. So why did he walk away? And this wasn't necessarily the first character he walked away from. He also walked away from his work on the Transformers too. I do remember that. So, According to animation historian Jim Quirkus, Kasem had been a vegetarian since the 1970s and had been turning down meat, fish, and dairy commercials since the 1980s. He later transitioned from vegetarian to vegan, all while playing the pizza-loving, sandwich-inhaling Shaggy. I think I see where this is going. Being a vegan means, you don't eat meat, and of course, Shaggy would always eat meat. It might have caused kind of a conflict of interest there. Kasem recalled, quote, I asked the director at the time if it would be possible to quietly make Shaggy and Scooby vegetarians in the series. The director of the shows at the time, in parentheses, they said, in smaller quote, sure, Casey, we can do that, unsmaller quote. So when Scooby and Shaggy had a pizza instead of pepperoni, they would put vegetables on it. Instead of a hamburger, they would have an elaborate peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Kasem's principals were satisfied, even if the public didn't necessarily know it. In 1997, Burger King released Scooby-Doo themed toys with their Kids Club meals. Hanna-Barbera was enlisted to assist with the commercials, something Kasem was tapped to participate in as the voice of Shaggy. Oh boy, this is probably where things came to a head. You got a fast food place that specializes in burgers, a meat, and one of the potential pitchmen for your product is a guy who's a vegan who probably hasn't eaten at a Burger King, if possibly, if ever in his life. That could be somewhat of a problem. Let's see. Yeah. Previously, Kasem turned down other commercial voice acting jobs that went against his principles. A cigarette commercial and Kellogg's cereal on the grounds that cereal is often eaten with milk, but those were roles for Casey Kasem as a voice actor. This was a role for Shaggy, and at this time, the only Shaggy was Kasem. Obviously, Kasem wasn't going to do the commercials. At this point, he had been a vegan and animal rights advocate. Also, canonically, Shaggy was a vegetarian at this point too, even if it hadn't been officially announced to the fans. Kasem spoke to Hanna-Barbera. He couldn't do it, saying, quote, it was against my conscience to promote something that I myself wouldn't eat. Now, granted, you can appreciate the man's courage and conscience to stand up for his principles there. And we'll see how this all pans out. Hanna-Barbera were understanding of Kasem's situation. At this point, he had voiced Shaggy in over 300 episodes and several movies. He had proven his loyalty and commitment to the Scooby-Doo franchise, but they were still obligated to make a commercial for Burger King. So Casey Kasem quit playing Shaggy to let other voice actors take on the role for the Burger King commercials. The most recent Scooby-Doo show, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, had finished airing in 1991. So this is happening in the late 80s there. So at this point, Kasem was only voicing Shaggy in movies, commercials, and a video game. Up and coming voice actors were called on to fill in Kasem's shoes. Tom Kenny, the future voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, took over the commercial. Billy West played Shaggy and Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Scott Innes played Shaggy in most other projects. Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, the Scooby-Doo Project, Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders, and Scooby-Doo Cyber Chase. Let me see. They give it. Oh wait, the thing is though that apparently the Burger King thing didn't come about till 1997, but a pup named Scooby Doo was, as I said, done back in from 89 to 91, I believe. So. Then everything changed in 2002 when Hanna-Barbera asked Kasem to return for a series of holiday specials. Kasem agreed to return on the condition that Shaggy and Scooby go back to being vegetarians, which Hanna-Barbera agreed to. From then on, Kasem continued playing Shaggy until 2009. So he basically took 5 years off so they could let other actors play it, and let Shaggy become a meat eater again. And then he was able to negotiate coming back with them, letting Shaggy become a vegan again or vegetarian. Till 2009 when he retired from voice acting. Even then, he returned for Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, where he voiced Colton Rogers, Shaggy's father. So there we go with that one. So, now with that being said, now I'm gonna quickly do the of course we're gonna do the wrestling wrap up, then we'll do this day in each history, and then then we'll wrap up the show. So with that being said, of course, so just some news coming out of WWE, of course. As people know, Netflix, WWE will be moving to Netflix in January. The Raw will be, anyways. Even Triple H is asking fans, to call this new era the Netflix era, not the Triple H era. Call it Netflix era. He was part of the Attitude Era, so he's basically been and in some news surrounding WWE, AEW, and TNA in a way, Ryan Nemeth, the younger brother of Nick Nemeth, who Ryan Nemeth currently a talent on Total Nonstop Ag TNA Wrestling, has recently come out and accused AEW, when he was still with the company, accused them of ignoring his complaints about CM Punk harassing him. And there's been some talk that he's seeking legal remedy, seeking monetary damages, and possibly a change in their protocols. Also, at least he claims he was blamed for CM Punk leaving AEW. So, anyways, let's get on to some current AEW news. Well, as on last night's Dynamite, of course, we know the Continental Classic continued. The opening match of the evening saw Kyle Fletcher defeat Shelton Benjamin in a Blue League match for the Continental Classic, in a match between the two point leaders in the Blue League. Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly both won the Dynamite Dozen 2024 Battle Royal, which I guess will ensure them a shot at MJF and the Dynamite Battle Ring. They, of course, outlasted Action Andretti, Top Flight, Ryan Cage, and Lance Archer of the Don Callis family, Evil Uno of the Dark Order, Leo Rush, Mark Davis, Rocky Romero, and The Butcher. Swerve Strickland defeated Max Caster in 2 minutes 15 seconds. Switchblade Jay White defeated Pac. Anna Jay did get back on the winning track, defeating Penelope Ford. And in the main event of the evening, in the Gold League match, battled the two of the 3-point leaders there. Claudio Castagnoli defeated Brody King. So now with that, let's also take a look at tonight's Impact and what to look forward to for those of you who would want to watch it on Access TV. PCO and Sami Callihan are set to take on the good hands of Jason Hotch and John Skyler. In an 8-man tag match, Frankie Kazarian teams with the Northern Armory of Josh Alexander, Judas Akiris, and Travis Williams to take on the team of Jonathan Gresham, Steve Macklin, Mike Santana, and Eric Young. In a the number one contenders 5-way match for the TNA X Division title, JDC, Kushida, Trent Seven, Ace Austin, and Leon Slater all vie for the number one contenders to Moose's X Division title. And then in a match for the TNA World Tag Team titles, the Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, will be defending against the System's Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers. I believe this would be Edwards and Myers invoking their rematch clause. So with that, that's all I got for you on the wrestling wrap-up. So let's see. So now, with today being Thursday, December the 5th, 2025, let's take a look back at this day. Niche history. So, first off, we're going to head back 40 years ago today. Is on this date 40 years ago today, back in 1984. Disney Television Animation is founded on this date back in 1984. 40 years ago today, Disney Television Animation is founded on this date back in 1984. Moving ahead now to the next piece of niche history here. Move ahead to 1994. On this date, 30 years ago today, in 1994, the 35th issue of Carl Bank's Library of Walt Disney's Comics and Stories went on sale on newsstands on this date from Gladstone's, the 35th issue of Gladstone's Carl Bank's Library of Walt Disney's Comics and Stories in Color went on sale on this date back in 1994, 30 years ago today. It sold for $8.95 and was 56 pages. And finally, on this date 20 years ago today, on this date back in 2004, TNA had its Turning Point pay-per-view on this date back in 2004. Of course, The main event of the show saw America's Most Wanted of Chris Harris and James Storm defeating the Triple X duo of Christopher Daniels and Ela Kibler in a 6 Sides of Steel tag team match where the losing team must split up. You also saw in another 6-man tag match AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, and Randy Savage defeat the Kings of Wrestling of Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Jeff Jarrett. Petey Williams retained the TNA X Division title over Chris Sabin. Let's see, what else? Anything? In a Serengeti survival match, Monty Brown defeated Abyss. In another 6-man tag match, Sanjay Dutt, Hector Garza, and Sonny Siaki defeated Kid Cash, Kazarian, and Michael Shane. The show opened up in a match for the NWA World Tag Team Championships as the Team Canada duo of Bobby Roode and Eric Young defeated 3 Live Crew duo of BG James and Ron Killings for the Tag Team Championship. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow night with more Niche News. And also on Sunday, I'll be joined by Apex from Apex Comics. And we'll be looking back to April 1940, looking at books that went on sale in April 1940. This week we'll be focusing in on Centaur Publications. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.